So I wanted to, as promised, give a quick little video on my HSG experience. So to start off, I did not really have any like prep information on the procedure. I was just told that I would register downstairs at the main hospital and they would take me to the x-ray room where I would get the procedure done. So going into it, I immediately went on YouTube, looked up other people's videos on their experience, which I think kind of heightened my nerves about it. So eventually I stopped looking on YouTube and kind of just said it's going to be what it's going to be. So that morning of, I was told not to obviously have sex after my period started, that cycle, to avoid possibly being pregnant and then doing the procedure. So that morning of, I stopped to the store, got some Motrin, took me 2 pills of Motrin to kind of like help with possible pain that I would maybe have. When I got to the hospital, I was checked in my registration. I had already filled out my forms online, so I didn't have any that I had to fill out once I got there. I just had to verify my name, my date of birth, all those things. So they took me over to x-ray where they had me change. I was able to I had to take everything off except my bra. And then I was told to put on hospital socks. So I got in there. It's like a regular like x-ray room if you had like an MRI or an x-ray. It's kind of like that. I could see the little sterile kit with all the things ready, the speculum, the catheter, the contrast, all of that stuff, the betadine. And so the x-ray technician let me know, have I ever had one before? And I was like, yeah, I've had one before, but it's been, 3+ years before my daughter. And so she was like, well, just so you know, we would have you, they had like this little like foam type of like triangular type cushion that my pelvis was supposed to sit on, my bottom. And so she was like, once the doctor comes here, you would sit your pelvis on your bottom on this. You would lay back. We could give you like warm blankets to cover yourself. And then when you get up afterwards, don't be alarmed because there will be a lot of betadine on the sheet. And so a lot of people are like scared thinking that it's blood and it's not. So I was like, okay. And so she was saying that the physician's assistant would come in and that's who kind of like hoovers the x-ray thing over my abdomen and my pelvis. And she worked that part to make sure that they had enough images. So when the doctor came in, I was already on the table. He helped me get in position. But then the PA came in and it was like a second PA. I guess she was training. So it was a lot of people in the room and I wasn't expecting that. It was like an x-ray technician, a nurse, I think, or another x-ray technician, the doctor, 2 PAs. And so I was like, oh, it's a lot of people. I'm in this uncompromising position, which I understand people have to learn. So I'm not like against it. I just like a heads up. But everybody came in the room. And so the PA was like, hold on. We need to adjust the x-ray because what's going to happen is we can see your left tube. We'll be able to see the left side of your pelvis, but not the right side. And we want to be able to see it in real time, not just once we look at the images later. And so I was like, okay, so what does that mean? And as she's telling me this stuff, the doctor's already down there putting the spec in, which is uncomfortable. And then he's like, I'm going to give you some numbing medication. So he has this needle. And I'm like, whoa, I don't remember any numbing medication before. Is this going to hurt? And so before I knew it, he did it. And it's like it wasn't uncomfortable. I wouldn't even say a pinch. It was barely noticeable. But it was just the fact that she's talking to me. I got a speck in my vagina. And it's like, okay, I'm trying to like focus on what he's doing because I don't want him to do anything without me like having a heads up where I'm able to like get my head in a good space. So she's like, okay, I'm cleaning you. So I've called to feel him cleaning off my cervix and more cleaning and more cleaning and more cleaning. So they make sure that it's very sterile. And so the machine restarts. It's still not the image that they want. So then the x-ray technician leaves, gets the main radiologist to come in. And so at this point, I'm like, what is going on? Because now the catheter's in and everything's just sitting in there and the doctor's just waiting to be able to push the contrast through. And so I'm like, look at the PA and I'm like, okay, well, what's happening? And she's like, this never happens. Okay, don't say that. Don't say this never happens, because when you say that, I'm immediately like, oh great, like this doesn't make me feel good. And so whatever the main radiologist did, she restarted it and then it was fine. So I was like, okay. So immediately, like, there's no warning. He's like, okay. And I could tell that he's putting the contrast in, because I start to feel like my lower abdomen starts to feel really, really full. And so at first I'm just like, he's asking me, am I okay? I can't breathe. You're messing all down there. I ain't got nothing to say. So I'm just breathing. And then I can tell when it starts to go to my tubes, because then I start to feel like crampy. I have a very high pain tolerance. Like, broke my hip, didn't know high pain tolerance. However, at a certain extent with that contrast, I was uncomfortable. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably like a 6, a strong 6 going to 7. And so he was like, tilt your hips to the right. And I'm like, okay. Again, it's super crampy. So it's like, I don't want to move, but okay. So he's like, tilt it all the way. So I tilt my hip as much as I can. And then he's like, I need more contrast. Whoa. I said, it's a 6 out of 10 now. If you add any more contrast, I'm sure we're going to be like an 11 out of 10. So she gets the contrast ready, but then he's like, I don't need it. And I'm like, thank you, Lord, because I physically cannot handle any more to contrast. So he's like, okay, we're done. And so he's like getting the catheter out and whatnot. And so when he takes everything out, I can feel it kind of like flow back out, the dye flow back out. It's cool. And so he's like, can you see the picture? And I'm like, no, because of the huge thing over my pelvis. And so they push it back, and he's like, do you see the picture? And so he shows me. He was like, okay, this is your uterus, which is great. And then these are your tubes. And he said, so as you can see the fluid flowing through the tubes, and then you can see where it spills out. And it looks like kind of like a cloud almost. So he was like, you passed, your uterus looks great, no polyps, no nothing, and your tubes are not blocked. And I was like, whew. And immediately once he pulled everything out, pain was gone. So it was like, I would probably say a minute worth of discomfort. But that minute felt like 5 minutes. So it's a minute, but it was a long minute. It was a very long minute. So they had me, I asked, could I take a picture of the screen? Of course, they're like, no, you can't take a picture of the x-ray, which is fine. So if I can, I'll probably try to insert a picture of what one looks like up here, if I can find one. And so, of course, he was like, okay, I'll see you in a few minutes, because I had to do my updated follicle scan next. But yeah, so far I'm back home, not cramping. I did notice that I had some bleeding when I got up and I wiped after the HSG. And then after my follicle scan, I also noticed that I had some bleeding when he pulled out the ultrasound probe. And then when I wiped, nothing like a flow, but just some spotting. So I did ask if I had to like abstain from any sexual intercourse or anything after the fact. He said no. That as long as I'm comfortable with, doing it, that I'm free to. So yeah, that was my HSG experience. It was not bad. I hope I never have to do it again, though. I would be okay with never doing it again. So if you are getting ready to do an HSG, are considering it, I would definitely say to take medication at least 30 minutes before, and just breathe. Like, the breathing really helped. I feel like when you tense your body up, it kind of makes it a harder situation. So just try to practice like breathing through your nose and out through your mouth. But yeah, so that's it. Talk to you all later.